Hi guys, normally on this channel when I'm calling out Brexiteers for some lie they told or some rubbish they spout, it's normally one man or one woman who is defending leaving the EU. However, this clip seemed to have 3 Brexiteers, each of them trying to defend Brexit in their own unique way. People didn't vote to leave the single market. People didn't vote to be poorer. People did vote to take back control of immigration. Let's jump into this clip from GB News.
It looks like The Guardian doesn't like Brexit. I'm shocked, Josh.
Indeed. Well, I don't know if it's The Guardian who don't like Brexit, as more than half of voters now want Britain to forge closer ties with the EU, poll reveals. This isn't about rejoining the EU. This is about fixing and repairing our economic relationship with them. And certainly, and it's a strange thing here because they're talking about this poll, 10,000 voters that they surveyed, and they're giving them these like false dichotomy of options where they're going, would you like a closer relationship, in which case 3 times the amount of people said yes, rather than a more distant relationship, which most people now don't. Only 10% of people want a more distant thing. That's not what it is. People now just want the economic thing to be sorted out.
What do you mean the economic thing to be sorted out? Well, if the economic thing to be sorted out requires undoing Brexit, because if you look at why is the economy not growing at the moment? A number of factors, but you have to include Brexit, because Brexit limits businesses their access to foreign workers. It's discouraging investment. So if you're not attracting investment like before, if businesses can't get access to the workers they need, then the economy is going to suffer. So you can't really sort out the economic thing until you sort out Brexit.
Yes. And that isn't about rejoining the EU.
Yeah.
That's about getting rid of this red tape. That's about...
Wait a minute, how do you get rid of the red tape? Like, the best way to get rid of the red tape would be for the UK to rejoin the EU and then rejoin the single market. That would get rid of all the red tape, because it would be a member of the European Union. There would be no red tape. That's what businesses would actually prefer. Because the status quo, you can tinker around the edges, but the status quo, Britain being a third country, means you have this red tape.
Back to where we were.
This sounds more like being in the single market rather than being, ruled from Brussels.
Yes.
What does the... We want to be in the single market and not ruled by Brussels. If you're in the single market and not a member of the European Union, then you take the rules. You're not in the decision-making process. This is the problem with the let's go the single market route only. Like at the moment, Britain is a rule taker. The EU makes the rules. If you want to export into the EU, you have to follow EU standards. You don't have any say in how those standards are created, how they're written, because you're outside. You're a third country. If you become a member of the single market only, which I think is extremely difficult, it's not impossible, but it's practically impossible, just to be a member of the single market, then you're still in a situation where you're not writing the rules, you're taking the rules. It makes no sense. There's no reasonable argument for a country like Britain to say, yeah, we're going to be a rule taker and not a rule maker.
Absolutely. The reason why people, or one of the main reasons I should say, why people wanted to leave the EU was to be in control of immigration.
No, it's not they wanted to be in control, it's they believed that they were not in control. When the UK was a member of the European Union, it controlled controlled immigration. Now, you can't argue that, well, we're not controlling it now because we didn't leave the European Union or something, or we didn't get our Brexit. The UK is no longer a member of the European Union. It could control its immigration while it was a member. It's actually in a worse position now because it can't send people back to certain countries when it could have been availing of that benefit, if you want to put it, the Dublin Convention. If the UK was a member of the Dublin Convention, it could be sending refugees, asylum seekers to different parts of Europe. But it can't do that now.
because they didn't like freedom of movement. They wanted more control over immigration. That hasn't happened. So you think to yourself, quite frankly, what has been the point of Brexit?
Well, people didn't vote to be poorer, and they didn't necessarily vote.
People didn't vote to be poorer. No, I know people didn't vote to be poorer. Now, some people on the Remain side were saying, if you do vote for Brexit, you will be poorer. While the response from Brexiteers was, that's Project Fear. We won't be poorer. We'll be richer. You know, the Brexiteers back in 2016, Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and others like those, they were not saying, well, we might be a bit poorer. No, they were saying we will be richer. Everything will be better as soon as we leave. The day we vote, things will get better. The day we leave, it will be wonderful. The people who were saying the British people would get poorer were the Remainers.
Because it wasn't part of
I voted to be poorer.
No, but they didn't vote to leave the single market. And that is an argument.
This sort of revisionism, okay. No, nobody voted to leave the single market. But where were you people in 2019? And 2018 and 2017? When all of this discussion about leaving the single market was front and center. These people never complained about the single market right up until Boris Johnson and the Brexiteers were talking about we need to leave the single market. Isn't it so strange? Now that they understand the reality of being outside the single market, they're saying, well, we should have been in the single market. Nigel Farage didn't say anything about the single market. Now he is mentioning it. Daniel Hannan was warning about leaving the single market. He said in 2015, we're not talking about leaving the single market. But as soon as Brexit happened, he was extremely quiet.
Probably what people weren't put to them.
I don't know. I think you're projecting onto what people thought they were voting for. Anyway, moving on.
People didn't know what they were voting for. People were told, we're leaving the European Union. That's all. There wasn't a detailed discussion about what the consequences would be. Well, on the Brexiteer side, they said everything will be wonderful. Nigel Farage said there would be sunlit uplands, I believe. Jacob Rees-Mogg said footwear and clothes and food would be cheaper by leaving the European Union. How did that work out? Like, the Brexiteers said everything would be great. The Remainers were concerned. They were saying, look, we're listening to the experts, the head of the CBI, we're listening to the International Monetary Fund, we're listening to the Bank of England. They're saying it's going to be a problem. There'll be negative consequences for Britain if it leaves the European Union. And the response from Brexiteers were, of course, Project Fear. Now you're trying to say, well, people didn't vote to leave the single market. People didn't vote for bad things. We've realized that Brexit isn't all that great. And what we're going to say is that people didn't vote for that. They voted for the good type of Brexit, but that good type of Brexit hasn't materialized. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.